Section 64 of Through Fairy Halls of My Bookhouse. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Through Fairy Halls of My Bookhouse. Edited by Olive Beaupre Miller. 64. Phaeton, a Greek Myth. There dwelt once in Greece the nymph Clymene and her son Phaeton, a bold and headstrong youth. Among his schoolfellows, Phaeton once boasted that his father was no common mortal like theirs, but Phoebus Apollo, the mighty lord of the sun, who drove across the blue dome of heaven the flaming chariot of day. "Ho!" laughed his schoolfellows, "words come easy," and they mocked him and scoffed at his boast. "Phoebus seems in no such haste to call thee son as thou art to call him father. For any notice he has ever taken of thee, thou mightest be son of a swineherd." Then was Phaeton wrathful, and stormed back home to his mother. "These fellows will not believe," he said, "that I am son of Apollo. I shall go to my father and demand that he give me some sign to show them I speak the truth." "Go, my son," said Clymene, "thy father will bid thee welcome. But ask of him a modest and moderate sign becoming thy youthful years. Remember he is lord of the sun, and thou art but a youth." Phaeton paid little heed to her words. He flung himself out of her presence and was off on his journey. Toward India he travelled, the region of the sunrise. At length, far, far to eastward, he came upon the palace of the sun. Reared high on splendid columns it stood, ablaze with gold and jewels. Nothing abashed by all its splendor, Phaeton toiled up the steep ascent and entered the halls of the palace. Boldly he pushed on into the very presence of Apollo, but there he was forced to stop, for so bright were the rays streaming from that august head that Phaeton was dazzled by them. Arrayed in purple robes, Phoebus sat on a throne that glistened as with diamonds. On his right hand and his left stood the day, the month, and the year, while ranged about were the hours. Behind him stood Spring with garlands of flowers, Summer crowned with ripened grain, Autumn wreathed with purple grapes, and icy Winter coated with frost. Surrounded by these attendants, Apollo beheld the youth, and mildly asked him his errand. "O light of the boundless world," cried Phaeton, "Phoebus, my father, if thou dost permit me to use that name, I come to beseech thee, if I am indeed thy son, give me some proof by which I may be known to the world." When he ceased speaking, his father laid aside the beams that blinded the boy, held out his arms, and bade him approach. Then he held him in a close embrace. "Thou art indeed my son," said he. "Ask what thou wilt as proof. I solemnly vow to grant thy request." Phaeton's eyes gleamed. He sprang from his father's arms and flung back his head. "Grant me that I may drive for one day across the heavens thy mighty chariot of the sun." Then was the father alarmed at such a foolhardy request, and repented his rash promise. "Nay, my Phaeton," he said, "this request only do not make. I beg thee, withdraw it. It is not a boon that is safe for thee, nor suited at all to thy youth and strength. In thine ignorance thou dost think to attempt what I only am able to do. None but myself may drive the flaming car of day." "I will have no other boon," cried Phaeton. But, my son, the first part of the way is so steep, my horses, when fresh in the morning, can hardly make the climb. The middle is so high up in the heavens that I myself can scarcely look down without alarm, and behold the earth and sea stretched beneath me. The last part of the road descends at a giddy pace, so one must know just how to drive to keep from plunging headlong. Still the obstinate boy insisted. Perhaps thou dost think there are splendid palaces and temples to be seen on the way. But on the contrary, the road lies through the midst of frightful monsters. Constellations of stars they are called on earth. Thou must pass by the horns of the bull and the gaping jaws of the lion, between the claws of the scorpion and the crab. Nor wilt thou find it easy to guide those fire-breathing horses. I can scarcely hold them myself if they chance to grow unruly. I beg thee to choose more wisely." "I will have naught but to drive thy car," cried Phaeton. So at last, all unwillingly, Phoebus led the way to where stood the lofty chariot. It was of gold, the pole and wheels of gold, the spokes of silver. Along the seat were rows of chrysolites and diamonds, which reflected all around the brightness of the sun. While the wilful youth gazed in admiration, the dawn threw open the purple doors of the east, and showed the pathway strewn with roses. Slowly the stars withdrew, led by the day-star. When he saw the east beginning to glow, and the moon preparing to retire, Phoebus ordered the Hours to harness up the horses. Forth from the lofty stalls they led the steeds, full fed with ambrosia, and attached the jewelled reins. Then the father reluctantly set the crown of brilliant rays on his son's head, and said with a sad farewell sigh, "Ah, my son, in this at least heed my advice. Spare the whip and hold tight the reins. Thou wilt see the marks of the wheels on the road, and they will serve to guide thee." The agile youth sprang into the chariot, stood erect, and grasped the reins with reckless delight. Meanwhile the horses fill the air with their snortings and fiery breath, and stamp the ground impatient. Now the bars are let down, and the boundless plain of the universe lies open before them. They dart forward, cleave a way through the clouds, and outrun the morning breezes. The steeds soon feel that the load they draw is lighter than usual, and now they refuse to obey the reins, and turn from the travelled road. Phaeton is alarmed. He knows not how to guide them. He plies them madly with his whip. Forward they race at breakneck speed. Phaeton looks down, far down to the earth. His knees shake. In spite of the glare all around him, the sight of his eyes grows dim. He wishes he had never touched his father's horses, never prevailed in his request. He is borne along like a vessel that flies before a tempest, when the pilot can do no more. Much of the heavenly road is left behind, but more remains before. He rolls his eyes from the goal, whence he began his course, to the realms of sunset, which he will never reach. He loses his self-command, and knows not what to do, whether to draw tight the reins, or throw them loose. He forgets the names of the horses. He sees with terror the monstrous forms scattered over the surface of heaven. Here the scorpion stretches his great arms with his tail and crooked claws over two signs of the zodiac. When the boy beholds him, his courage fails, and he drops the reins from his hands. Now, altogether unrestrained, the horses plunge headlong. In among the stars they dash, hurling the chariot over pathless places, now up in high heaven, now down almost to the earth. The clouds begin to smoke, and the mountain tops take fire. The fields are parched with heat, the plants wither, the trees with their leafy branches shiver, the harvest is ablaze, great cities burn with their walls and towers. So Phaeton beholds the world on fire, and feels the heat unbearable. The air he breathes is like a furnace. He dashes forward, he knows not whither. Then it is believed the people of Ethiopia were scorched black, and the Libyan desert dried up to a waste of burning sand. The nymphs who dwelt in the fountains mourned the loss of their waters, nor were the rivers safe beneath their banks. The earth cracked open, the sea shrank up. Where before was water, it became a dry plain. The fishes sought the lowest depths, and the dolphins no longer dared sport as before on the waves. Even Nereus, the old man of the ocean, and his wife Doris, with the Nereids their daughters, sought refuge in the deepest caves. Earth, screening her face with her hand, cried out with a husky voice on Jupiter, king of the heavens, to save her. Then Jupiter, all-powerful, perceiving the ruin wrought by this mad race, mounted the lofty tower whence he sends clouds over the earth and hurls the forked lightnings. Thence he launched a thunderbolt and struck Phaeton from his seat. Headlong, like a shooting star, plunged the youth, his hair ablaze, down, down into the depths of the river Eridanus, and so the earth was saved. Showers refreshed her, and she burst again into bloom. End of 64.